We have been so busy this week getting tons of stuff done, and I'm going to show you all of that in today's episode. I have so many projects going at once, and I'm going to be finishing this weird old trunk thing. I'm also going to be working on making this Goodwill painting into something a little more updated. And I also picked up a boatload of furniture donations that I'm going to be donating to a young mother who has aged out of foster care and is finally in her first ever home. And I'm going to be taking part in a collaboration video that is hosted by Second Chance Ohana, and I will have the link to the playlist with that collaboration in the description box. And there are going to be tons of other YouTubers that are making over pieces of furniture to donate to somebody in need as part of the spirit of Christmas. This couch I picked up from Craigslist for free, and I'm going to be giving that just a little bit of a makeover, but not in today's video. I just wanted to show you all the things that I picked up to donate to that wonderful young mom. Her apartment is almost completely empty. All she had when I went to visit her was beds and pots and pans and things for her kitchen. So I wanted to make sure that I tried really hard to help furnish this home for her and her adorable little son so that they can start out life on the best foot possible and not have to worry about creating a home. And I don't know if you guys remember this tree from my Christmas haul, but I found the perfect home for it, and it lights up in all these beautiful colors. So I thought that her son would really appreciate it. We already delivered one of the bookshelves that you saw in the beginning of the stuff that I showed you of everything that was donated. I just went out and bought some little storage boxes from the dollar store and put them into these two pieces so that he'd have a place to put all his toys and maybe his clothes, whatever they decide to do with it. I also already delivered a side table, which is this one that you're seeing right here. But first, I'm going to show you how I gave it a makeover. We picked it up from somebody's curb. I got a message on Facebook saying that they had a side table to donate. Since I've been doing this for a really long time, people have spread the word about how I donate a lot of my projects to young adults that are aging out of foster care. So sometimes I will just get messages of, hey, do you want this? This was one of those. The first thing that my husband's doing to help fix up this table is to fill in those areas where the veneer has peeled off. This table was made of plywood underneath the veneer, which is something you don't see very often. Sometimes you'll see like some kind of particle boards, just weird non-wood products, but this one was like real chunky plywood underneath there. So there was no using what was underneath this veneer. I didn't want to peel it off. We did our best to save all the veneer that wasn't peeling, and we just filled in that weird routed in edge. I despise those routed in edges on tables like these, especially when you have children, because all sorts of gunk just gets trapped into that little area. So I wanted to make sure that we filled that thing in before we dropped it off at her house. The style that she told me that she likes is girly with rose gold and white and gray, and she also liked the very glam like dark grays and black and chrome together, as well as mirrored finishes. So I kept that in mind as we were working on the projects for her. Now he's just going to sand this piece to prep it for paint. Now that the wood filler has dried, he's going to sand the top nice and smooth, and for this he's going to use the orbital sander since it is a nice flat surface. The legs are round and have lots of dips and shapes to them, which is why he had to do those by hand, but this top is going to go by nice and quickly because he gets to use a power tool. On to my favorite part, which is the paint. I picked up this can of paint for $2 at Home Depot. It is a paint and primer mix. It is a latex paint, which is why we had to sand the surface to prep for paint, because otherwise it may not have stuck as well as, say, a chalk paint would have. I don't know the name of this color. It was in the Oops paint section and I didn't see a name on it when I picked it up, so I have no idea what paint color to tell you guys that this is, but I must say it is one of my favorite paint colors I've ever used. And on top of that, Behr paint covers really well. You usually only need one coat, and I love that about it. Also, latex paints tend to look really smooth on their own, but I am using a Wooster brush, which you can buy from Home Depot as well, and that tends to leave a nice smooth finish when brushing. Once I was finished painting, I let that dry a little bit, but the front of the drawer was already dry, and so I took this time to figure out what knob I wanted to add to it. I knew she was into rose gold. I didn't really have anything that was rose gold. She was also into really glamorous, shiny things, so I just grabbed a couple of knobs that I had in my stash. The original knob here was super cute. If I were doing a farmhouse or vintage look, I would continue using the original knob. But I wanted to grab a glam option as well as something in a gold. I got this one off of Amazon, and I will link it in my description box in my Amazon store. But first, let's try on this glam one. It's a glass, like it's cut to be real faceted and shiny, and it just wasn't working for me. The color of this was way more casual than that knob was. And so I tried on this other little golden T knob, and it was perfect for the piece. I really thought that it helped to modernize it as well as add that gold element that she likes. Then, because latex is not super durable, we went over the top with some lacquer. I'm trying to avoid doing the spray painting when possible since I'm pregnant, so my husband did this part for me. I still am going to have to do some of the spray painting on some future projects for her, but I make sure to cover up really good when I do that and wear a respirator. Here it is all finished. It's still drying on the top, but we have already delivered this piece to her, and she was really happy to have that. Next, we are going to work on that weird old like trunk or ottoman. I don't know what the original purpose was. It is not antique, although it looks like it from its condition right now. It was falling apart, but it's made of solid pine. It was made in Mexico. A lot of the furniture that is made in Mexico is solid, really thick pieces of pine. Very sturdy pieces and very easy to repair. Here's a close-up of just how dirty this piece was. I got it from a yard sale way over a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, and it was sitting out in the weather on some acreage, a ranch somewhere with some horses and whatnot. And I'm just going to pressure wash it because it's solid pine and it is raw wood. I am able to just pressure wash it clean like you would do to a deck. And it came pretty clean. The water stains are still very apparent, and if you were to do a piece like this and want to get rid of those water stains, you could use something called oxalic acid, which helps to get rid of those black stain marks. But we just use regular household bleach and sprayed it down. I don't mind the stains. I think it looks really cool, and I do plan on whitewashing this piece with some white wax to help kind of even its tone a little bit, kind of like putting on some concealer makeup when you have some uneven skin tone going on. It's makeup for this trunk. Once it was dry, off camera, my husband sprayed it down with some regular household bleach, undiluted, out of one of those pressured bottles that you use for spraying weeds. And then when that dried, I went over it with just an old barbecue brush. So this is one of those brushes that you use to clean your barbecue grate out in any kind of barbecue grill. Our whole kit for our barbecue has seen better days, and today was the day I decided to repurpose this brush and use it for my furniture instead. Since my belly has grown quite a bit, I needed something that was going to be able to reach so I didn't have to bend as far, and that long handle was really, really helpful. The reason that I needed to use a wire brush is because when you pressure wash wood like that, sometimes you can lift up some of the wood grain and cause a little bit of splinters that stick out. So I don't want any little hands, or even my own hands or anybody's hands, to get splinters in them when rubbing across the surface of this piece. So I made sure to brush it down so well to where there would be none of those issues. As part of my goal for the upcoming year, I'm trying to clean out my garage to be able to park both of my cars in there. And so I am using up all the things that I have stored in there right now, including that big hunk of wooden countertop that I made probably 4 years ago. I wanted to see if it would fit perfectly on top of this box. And here's a close-up of what it looked like after it was all cleaned and wire brushed. It looks really great just how it is. And let's slide that top on top of there. It was really heavy. It's made of 2x4s that we pulled out of our walls when we remodeled our house. It fit like a glove. I could have trimmed it just a tiny bit to get rid of the overhang, but I kind of liked how it looked. Now it's time for that wax that I was talking about. So this is white wax, which can also be referred to as antiquing wax. Just depends on the brand or the person who's saying it. This antiquing wax is by Bear, which I never knew existed, and since I was buying all the supplies for this video at my local Home Depot just out of convenience, I wanted to try out their antiquing wax. You can find it in like the paint and wood stain aisles. And my son always has to be involved. You know that I can't get anything done without him having to help me, which I appreciate. He's such a sweetheart. He always comes by when he sees tools or paint out and says, "Mama, can I help?" Now on to my review of this white wax. Since I've never used it before, I'd like to tell you guys how I like or dislike a product that I'm trying for the first time. And I really liked this. I was surprised. I figured since it was a Bear product that it would be less artisan. I don't know how else to describe that, but more of like a multi-purpose product that anybody could use but may not be the best. And it really wasn't the case. I really enjoyed using it. It was very smooth compared to other white waxes that I've used, like with Amy Howard's white wax. Hers is very like hard and hard to blend, but it goes on really thick, so it's kind of like a thicker white. This is a thinner white, but it goes on way more even, and it spreads on like butter, which I really appreciated, so that my hands did not have to work too hard going around this big old thing here. And I only did one coat, and I'm going to use this product again on another project that I have in this video, so make sure you stay tuned to see that one as well. I have to let that white wax cure, so I'm giving you a little sneak peek of my stash of fabrics that I have. This is not even all of it, but I needed to pick a fabric to go on the top of that now ottoman that I am making. I wanted it to be something that was upholstered and cushioned because we are actually keeping this piece in our home. In my video where I did those 2 armchairs, I had showed you guys this fabric, and I love blue and white. I'm obsessed with blue and white, everything pretty much. And I wanted to make sure that it was going to go well with the wood tone. And I loved it, so I'm going to use it. And the first thing that I need to do when upholstering anything is to make sure to get the wrinkles out. I still haven't found my iron, which has me completely infuriated because I have a really nice Rowenta iron, and I don't know where it is in all my hoard of supplies. Just another reason why I need to clean out all my stuff and be organized next year. So I'm just using a steamer. This is a Conair steamer. I have a couple of them linked to my Amazon store if you want to try out using a steamer. It worked kind of faster than my iron, so in a way it was a bit of a blessing in disguise that I couldn't find my iron, because it got those wrinkles out super fast, and I didn't have to make sure that the surface was completely smooth and flat in order to get those wrinkles out, which was nice. I could have left this top in wood if I wanted it to be a coffee table. It looked really nice, and I would have just had to stain the sides of it. But I want to put my feet up. I deserve to rest and put my feet up at the end of a long day of furniture flipping, and I wanted it to be fabric so that it's nice and soft, just in case my little ones ever are running around and might bump their head on it or something. So I'm going to put some 1-inch foam across the top of it. And this is such a fate moment. This foam fit perfectly, 2 pieces across the top of this wood lid, and I couldn't even believe my eyes when I saw that. That's how you know you're doing the right thing. The trick I always use to make a smooth surface when using foam as padding is to go over the foam padding with some quilt batting. And you can double up the quilt batting as well, and that gives you even more cushion for the surface, but it also just smooths out any lines you had, and that way you can't see the actual pieces of foam that are under there. Of course, my son had to come test it out. I tell you, anytime I'm working on something, he says, "Mama, can I help?" So now I'm just going to cut it to fit the size of the top of this lid here. It needs to go over the edge quite a bit, and then we will flip it over and staple that whole thing on there. Finally, on to the fun part, which is putting the fabric on and getting to see the real finished product here. Since that lid's really heavy, my husband comes and helps me move it. I really appreciate his help on all of these projects, and he has become quite the DIYer, having been helping me since I've been pregnant. But I'm cutting it out to fit just like I did with that quilt batting before I staple it on. It's easier to cut it before than it is to cut it after it's been stapled on, so that is definitely something that I would recommend doing. For the underside, I'm going to finish it off with some fabric. It's like a canvas fabric. It was really just a curtain. My grandmother used this curtain in her house, and I wanted a piece of her to be into this project. I love having little pieces of her around to make me think of her, and she's really such a special person to me, so I like to have memories of her all throughout my house, and since I'm keeping this piece, this was a perfect way to incorporate that. And around the edges that I cut, I'm just folding them under to give it a finished edge instead of having to sew those unfinished cut edges. Another fun fact about me that I'm sure none of you knew is that I actually play the violin. So all of the fiddle music and that bluegrass music that you hear on my channel is something that I like because I actually learned to play music like that growing up. And my uncle Terry, who is now in heaven, also gave me lots of bluegrass music to listen to growing up, like Alison Krauss, who was a violinist herself. So if you like bluegrass, make sure to check out Alison Krauss. She's really great. We just did a dry fitting of the lid on here, and once we put it together, we realized this is way too tall. It is so much taller than the seat of our couches. And so the solution we came up with was to cut those feet off of the bottom, because I can't be putting my feet up and resting when it's at this kind of incline. My husband is using a Sawzall, using a blade that can cut through wood and nails, since he put nails in here, and he's just going to saw it smooth and then use a sander to make sure there's no splinters hanging out. The very last thing we needed to do was pick up some hinges to attach that top to the bottom. I guess you could just leave it on there to where you could take it off completely, but I wanted it to be easy for me. This lid is really heavy, I have really weak hands, and just being pregnant right now in general, I don't want to have to lift this over and over again to get blankets out of here or toys or whatever we may put in this. So my husband is going to install some of these brackets on here, these hinges, to keep that lid on just so I can open and close it with ease. I also plan on getting a soft close hinge, a safety hinge, so that way my son doesn't get his fingers slammed in here or trapped in there since it is kind of like a toy box. I found a lot of them on Amazon, so that's where I'm going to buy it from. I just didn't have a chance to get that done before the video. But here it is, all finished. I love every mark and scrape and stain that is in this wood here. I can't believe I finally finished this project after years of it sitting in my garage, and it looks amazing with the rest of my furniture. I wish I would have done this a lot sooner. And now we are going to move on to my next project, which is a painting that I got from Goodwill. It was $4.99 and it was half off for green that day, so I only paid about $2.50 for it. It was hand painted and signed, and I looked it up. I can't remember what the signature was off the top of my head, but I looked it up and it was a name that many painters would use. I believe it was like a New England thing where people in New England would paint scenes of New England and sign the same name to all of the paintings. So that's kind of an interesting story. It is not valuable. The ones on eBay, the highest I saw for this style with that signature, were going for like $40. And that's even at the high end, because typically when you're selling on eBay, you're selling for more than you would sell, say, at an antique booth or on Facebook Marketplace. You're just not going to get that return at all in selling it. So I wanted to lighten it up. I'm using that white wax that I was using on the ottoman. I did 2 coats of the white wax. Then I went around the entire frame with some of that Rub and Buff in the color Gold Leaf. This is my husband's favorite product that I use on my projects because it is such a huge instant change. It goes from whatever color you're starting with into bright, vibrant gold, or if you're using the copper or silver, it's very bright and vibrant. So I highly recommend you picking some up. I'll have some linked in my Amazon store in the description box. I'm also going to have that link to the playlist for the Spirit of Giving playlist with all those other YouTubers who are making something over to give to someone out of the kindness of their heart. So make sure that you check that out after this video. But here is the finished product of that painting. It is so Bob Ross looking. I love it. He was such a kind soul and had the sweetest voice when he gave his tutorials, and is an inspiration to me here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to hit subscribe right here. And if you want to see more of my DIY projects, hit this link right here. Bye!